And when they finally pulled the driver's body from the twisted, burning wreck, it looked like this.
So it was a little over a week ago that the world lost a legend. That legend was comedian Paul Reubens. Paul Reubens is known for his genius and iconic character Pee Wee Herman, which it was him and his friend Phil Hartman, dear friend and fellow comedian, that came up with the character back in 1978. Look, Paul Reubens was no doubt a comedian. He was a comedian at heart. He was born to be one. He got his start in the 1970s. He was performing at the local comedy clubs around town, and he just did what everybody else does in that line of work. He started from the bottom. Look, Paul Reubens and Phil Hartman became very good friends, like brothers. It's been said by both of them how much they care about each other. When Phil Hartman died, it hurt Paul Reubens very badly, and he admitted so in tons of interviews after his passing. But these two worked together a lot. They wrote together, they performed together, they did everything together as their time in the Groundlings. You know, Paul Reubens even credited Phil Hartman for a role that he landed in the 1980 movie The Blues Brothers. He had a small role as a waiter, and he really thanked Phil Hartman for that role. So there was one night in 1978 where the Groundlings were getting ready to do a performance. Paul Reubens had been working on a character. He wanted this character to be a comic that was very inept at telling jokes, so it would be obvious to the audience. It was on this night, with the help of Phil Hartman, that the Pee Wee Herman character was born. You know, it's kind of cool if you think about it. It really kind of gives me goosebumps. Could you imagine those people that were in that room when that was presented, that idea, that concept for that character? Could you imagine the people that seen it for the first time it was presented? Could you imagine? I guarantee none of them knew that something was created that was going to be so iconic and be beloved by millions. I guarantee that character will go down for all eternity. In 100 years, when we're long gone, they'll look back in the archives of stuff that we were interested in. They're going to see Pee Wee Herman. You know, what's something you could think of that you would say, I would love to have been there in that situation? You know, the members of Lynyrd Skynyrd, when Ronnie Van Zant was writing the lyrics to Freebird and they were practicing it for the first couple times. Do you think they had any idea what that was going to become? Or to be there when Jimi Hendrix grabbed the guitar and started playing it for the first time? Or the guy that created the World Wide Web, what was his name? Tim Berners-Lee? Fact check me on that, I could be wrong. But, I mean, could you imagine had he not done that? Maybe somebody else would have. But what has the World Wide Web done for us now? I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for that. Or in the room when the Mona Lisa was being painted. Just there's so many historic ideas. They have to come out somewhere. And it's always just a normal situation when it's presented and it comes to life. Nobody knows what it's going to do down the road. All great ideas got to start somewhere. So what are a couple things that made Pee Wee Herman Pee Wee Herman? Obviously the name. And Paul Reubens went down as saying that he came up with the name Pee Wee because he had a harmonica as a child and the brain of the harmonica was Pee Wee. He came up with Herman because of a very hyperactive kid that he used to know when he was a child. So he took the name, put them together, Pee Wee Herman. And then the gray suit, the iconic gray suit. It was a man named Gary Austin. He was the founder of the Groundlings Club. He gave them that suit as a hand-me-down. And then the red tie. Paul Reubens said that the red tie was just handed to him one night as he went out to perform. And it stuck with him ever since. You know, somebody that we should probably thank for the evolution of Pee Wee Herman is Lorne Michaels, the creator of SNL. Him and the writers at the time in 1980. Because he went and auditioned for Saturday Night Live. Him and Gilbert Gottfried auditioned at the same time. And obviously they ended up giving the part to Gilbert Gottfried. They said they were too similar in their comedic ways. So they didn't give it to Paul. But it was after this that Paul went and got his own loan from friends and he got the money to start his own show. So he was starting to perform at the Roxy. That was where the Pee Wee Herman show first got started. He was performing at the Roxy. He had a nice stretch there where he was performing there, and that's where he started to gain a bigger following. And then HBO comes along and puts him on there, on one of their spots, and that helps him even more. So he starts pushing this character, and the character's really gaining a following. But the thing that was kind of odd, he did 2 guest roles in some films. Cheech and Chong's Next Movie and Cheech and Chong's Nice Dreams. So if you've ever seen Cheech and Chong movies, you gotta wonder, what the hell is Pee Wee Herman doing in any of those movies? But they were small parts, but it still helped the character get more notice. So with the Pee Wee Herman character on a complete trajectory up, he was on fire, on the rise. The Pee Wee Herman show was doing great. Warner Brothers Studio approached Paul Reubens about doing a script for a full-length motion picture about Pee Wee Herman. Paul Reubens got his friend Phil Hartman to help him with the script. And not only that, Warner Brothers handpicked Tim Burton to be the director on the film. This film would end up being Pee Wee's Big Adventure. Look, if you ask me, Pee Wee's Big Adventure is a great movie. It's awesome. As a child, it was full of this cool mystique, and it was just awesome how the storyline and plot is laid out. I mean, all it is about is Pee Wee Herman's character. He's going around the nation pursuing his stolen bike. Such a simple concept that turned into such a great movie. So many little twists and turns. And Pee Wee, I mean, the character's awesome. Paul Reubens a genius for creating that character. But not only that, it was released in 1985. That's when it hit theaters. And it was on a $7 million budget that it garnered almost $41 million in return domestically. Almost 7 times its budget. It did have mixed reviews at the time of release, but there's no doubt that Pee-wee's Big Adventure has turned into a cult classic. Great movie. So after all the success that Pee-wee's Big Adventure garnered, he was approached by CBS to do a children's show. It was a live-action children's show, and it was called Pee Wee's Playhouse. This is my most vivid memory of Pee Wee, because as a child, I remember watching Pee Wee's Playhouse. I eventually would learn all of his work, everything that Pee Wee did, and I think like most people, eventually you go and watch him, all the stuff that he did. But this is my most early memory, and he did this for 5 seasons. And while he was still filming that, he did the sequel to Pee Wee's Big Adventure. It was called Big Top Pee Wee. This movie only garnered $15 million, so it was nowhere near the success of Pee Wee's Big Adventure. But at the same time, Pee Wee's Playhouse did amazing. It did great. CBS wanted to sign Paul Reubens back on for a 6th season, and that's when he told them he didn't want to do it. He declined. And it was said that he was burned out. He'd been doing Pee Wee for everything, whether it was for a TV show or a movie, an interview, when he was going on late night talk shows. He was in character almost all of the time. So most people never really got to know Paul Reubens as the man. But you know what? It was said later in interviews, talking to Phil Hartman, that he had approached Paul Reubens about the Pee Wee character. He said, hey, you're very smart, you're very funny, you got a lot in you. Don't continue doing the Pee Wee character, so that'll be all that you're ever known for. You got more in you. And apparently they kind of clashed on that. Their friendship kind of went into turmoil for a little while. And it was said to be because of that. Because Paul Reubens wanted to continue doing the character because it was making him a ton of money. But Phil Hartman, as a good friend, told him what he thought. So hindsight's 2020. No matter what, when you say the name Paul Reubens, it will forever be linked to Pee Wee Herman. So I want to take this moment in memory of Paul Reubens. He's gone, but he'll never be forgotten. I can tell you that right now. I thought to myself as I read the headline, Paul Reubens had passed away. As sad as it is, it's always going to get more sad because we're going to lose the people we love, and we're going to lose the ones that we've known and grown up around, as far as celebrities and musicians. I kept thinking, the first thing that popped in my head was, one day I may read the caption on my phone or my computer that Leo DiCaprio has passed away. I'm sorry, Leo, I'm not trying to jinx you. But it'll happen. It'll happen for me as well. But I grew up with Leo, from when he was a kid. And the day I read that headline, it'll be tragic. Because that's another person who went and had success in their career because they worked hard and didn't give up. Paul Reubens didn't give up. Even though he was known primarily for playing Pee Wee Herman, didn't matter. He continued on his career. He did great things, made a ton of money, and was able to successfully march on his career. He was able to comfortably live a life. So again, everybody out there, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel in memory of Paul Reubens. Pee Wee Herman, great character that will go down in history as a genius character. And he milked that bad boy for all it's worth, and there's nothing wrong with that. But again, do like Paul Reubens did. Find your passion, go for it. Think about things. Try new ideas. You never know when you're going to create that Pee Wee Herman moment. That one moment that might sound like a simple idea, but it'll go down in history as iconic. And that could be you on YouTube. That could be you out there playing music. That could be you out there as an astronaut, a teacher, anything. If you think about what you're doing and you try to get better every day, you will get better. So again, American Dream Channel, everybody, I want you to like and subscribe. And until next time, remember, always dream big.